if there are any questions or any tech issues, but we'll also have some time at the end for some question and answer. I don't anticipate the presentation going the full hour, so definitely lots of time at the end to ask any questions you may have. So with that, welcome to Eco Canada. We called this our seed info sessions, which is just kind of a long acronym word for some of our sessions we do for post-secondary institutions and to students, just to share more information about all of the resources Eco Canada has, because we really are here to help you throughout your career and really grow in your career in the environmental sector. So lots of opportunities and resources we can offer you guys from here. And so I want to share those with you today. My name is Emma. As Carolina mentioned, I am a team lead for our employment programs here at Eco Canada, and I've been with Eco Canada almost a year now, and we are based in Calgary. So a little bit of information about myself there. What we'll cover today is who is Eco Canada, a little bit of general information there, some of our environmental job market overview and hiring trends. So that's really exciting for you guys just to kind of see what's happening in the market right now and how much everything's growing. Some information about securing employment after graduation, which I'm sure is kind of top of mind, those resources for career development early in your career and also kind of once you get into those mid and late stages. And then also some of our training events and obviously our employment programs, which is where my department works. So lots of information I'll have on that part. So just generally speaking, who is Eco Canada? So we are the steward for the Canadian environmental workforce across all industries. So we champion the end-to-end career of an environmental professional, and we do that by things like training, our wage funding opportunities, our certification, and addressing the labor market gaps in the environmental industry as well. So we do quite a lot of things, as you'll see as we go throughout this presentation, but this is kind of a general statement of what we do in a nutshell. So this kind of has a little bit more insight in a graphic picture of where we kind of fit in throughout your journey and all the things we offer. So as mentioned, we tackle the gaps in the environmental workforce and have a few different offerings to help support you throughout your career as well. So you'll see we have kind of a student section, and most likely where you're going to fit in is kind of in that student and junior section, which goes into our wage funding opportunities. From there, it kind of goes into mid-level with some of our designations and trainings, and we'll talk about those in more detail later on. And then again, once you get into a senior role, you have advisory committees and kind of some more opportunities there, but we won't get into too much of those today because not too relevant at the moment, but this is just kind of a nice way for you to see how everything all fits together in the grand scheme of things. So first things first, we'll go into kind of what is the employment outlook in the environmental workforce at the moment. So these are kind of some of our stats we have at Eco Canada. So we do have a research team who does a lot of looking into these things for us and kind of seeing where our future gaps will be. So for right now, Canada's labor market has partially recovered from that initial COVID-19 shutdown. So the unemployment rate was 8.8% at the close of 2020. And while Canada's employment labor force shrank in 2020, the environmental sector added 35,000 net new jobs. So that's a 5% increase in new jobs that were created in the last few years. So pretty good growth we're seeing here, and our updated forecasts reveal that environmental employment could increase by 17% in 2025 compared to 5.4% for Canada overall. So the environmental sector is definitely seeing the most growth out of most opportunities out there, and so that's exciting, but also has that opportunity for you guys to fill those roles and kind of have those gaps filled, which is what we're focusing on a lot at Eco Canada internally. And so kind of a nice graphic here if you are interested in more research type things. We do have a full research section on our website, and I encourage you to kind of look through if research excites you and you want to learn a little bit more about the numbers we have going on here. So a little bit about the future of the green jobs. So some fun stats here. About 1 in 26 workers in Canada was in a green job in 2020, and that's up from 1 in 30 from the previous year. What we are seeing right now is that job growth and retirements will account for 173K net environmental job openings by 2025. And so what we're seeing is a lot of the demand is coming in those mid to senior level positions in the next few years. So while we're seeing retirements in the environmental sector, we're also seeing those new jobs created just coming out of the field. And so once you put all of that together with retirements and new positions, there's a lot of open positions available that we kind of need to fill in that mid to senior level role. So definitely some opportunities coming in that sector, but obviously good news for you guys. There's going to be lots of jobs opening up in the near future here. So some fun kind of stats here. I won't read them in too much detail, but again, if you're interested in learning a little bit more, definitely recommend checking out our research and labor market information on our website. So next we'll look a little bit, as I mentioned, there's the projected retirements that are also playing kind of a key factor in the next 5 years. And so that's about 14% of the 2020 employment. So again, particularly in those mid to senior level roles, we're seeing kind of the gaps coming from just general retirement from the workforce. So you can kind of see in the middle graphic here some of the key positions that we're expecting to have the largest impact in having those mid to senior level positions left. So some of the utilities managers, meteorologists and climatologists, senior managers in that kind of construction and transportation, health, education, and community services as well for senior managers, and then also in that landscape architects. So some kind of interesting roles there if you're looking to kind of figure out what you want to get into as well. These are also some kind of good titles to maybe take a deeper look into, since we know that there's going to be lots of openings for those in the next few years. And the last one I have kind of on our research side of things, again, is just some more of the critical shortages we're expecting. And so I won't go through each one in detail here, but you can kind of take a look and see which occupations we anticipate, again, to have the most of a shortage in the environmental sector, and which ones kind of have the wider supply and demand gaps. So again, if you're looking for some insight or some kind of creativity on what kind of roles you want to go into, or what might be out there in terms of positions, you can kind of take a look here and get some good insight on what might be available and what might be of interest to you. So a little bit there. And then last thing on this section, again, if you aren't too sure where you want to go in your career, we do have kind of more insight on career profiles on our website as well. So you can go to eco.ca/career profiles with that link there. So this just gives you some more information on the types of positions that might be available and kind of what those entail, what the post-secondary education requirement might be for it, what you can kind of anticipate to expect in that type of a role. So again, definitely nice to check out if you're not too sure, or even if you do have an idea of what you want to go into, but you want a little bit more insight into what the job might actually be, definitely feel free to check those out on our website, and we have lots of free resources for you guys. So definitely a good thing to take advantage of. So that's a little bit about our just general labor market and research side of things at Eco Canada. Next, I'll kind of go into more of the practical skills that might be a little bit more helpful that involve kind of that securing employment after graduation. So the top 3 things we're kind of seeing as the barriers to entry for youth entering into the environmental sector. Again, this is all kind of shown with our research team here at Eco Canada, is that most employers obviously are missing that mid to senior level experience. Might not be as relevant now if you're still in school and kind of coming out, but definitely something kind of down the line to tap into maybe some more of those leadership skills. The soft skill development is a big one we see, and then the applied technical abilities. So specifically with soft skill development, because we work with a lot of employers in the environmental sector, that's the one we hear about the most, kind of the most feedback we get from them is that you guys are coming in and doing a great job with kind of those technical skills and abilities, but where that soft skill development comes from, just from kind of being in job roles and having that experience, is kind of the main thing that's lacking when students are coming into new roles. And so we have a few different resources to kind of help tackle some of these barriers. We'll go into them in a bit more detail, but again, we have our wage subsidies, our designation, and our accreditation is kind of the key things we have to tackle some of these for you guys. So I'll start off with a bit of information about our certification programs. So we have a few different levels of it that I'll go into the next slide, but the one that's probably most important for you guys at the moment is our EPT student program. So EPT stands for Environmental Professional in Training, and then that can move on to being an environmental professional. So a designation to kind of have behind your name that proves you are committed to the environmental profession. And we do have a lot of employers who look for this designation as well, and it's kind of becoming more well recognized across Canada at this time. So the student programs for students who are in their final years, so if you're going into your final year come September, it would be kind of key for you because we've already gone through the process for this past year. It's an 8-month program running typically from November until August of the next year. There's just a $50 sign-up fee to go through the process, but once you have gone through the application process, you then have access to those 8 months where you have a lot of different kind of perks throughout the program, not only with having the designation behind your name, but you get a mentorship program as well. So depending on what you're interested in the environmental sector, you can be matched with a mentor that's already in that field who has kind of that mid to senior level experience to kind of help you throughout the process and chat through what to expect kind of in a career, get you some more connections, and just kind of be there as a mentor throughout the program. So that's kind of the key selling point for this program is that you get access to some great mentorship with someone in the field you want to go into. You also get access to some of our training programs for free. So we do offer quite a few different training resources on our website. Some are free, some do come with a cost, but if you are in this EPT student program, those ones that have a cost do kind of get added on for free in the program. So kind of gives you a little bit more insight into the environmental sector and having a little bit more resources also into those soft skill development courses as well. We have things like project management and technical writing, those things that you might not get so much while you're in school and kind of doing more of the core courses. So definitely some benefits there. And then once you've done the full EPT student program, you have the option once you're finished that 8 months to go into an EPT designation. So that's our environmental professional in training. And I'll go to the next slide that gives a little bit more insight on what that means. So we have the 3 individual levels of EP, not accounting that student level that we just chatted about. So EPT is for junior professionals with less than 5 years of work experience. After you've had that for 5 years, you would then move on to be an environmental professional designation. And that's for the mid to senior level years of experience. From there, if you're really interested in it, you can move into the auditor role. And so this is just specializing in compliance and management systems for auditing. And so that's not an expected kind of route for everyone, but it is an option if you're interested in getting into more of that auditor position. And then we also have an organizational level of environmental professional employer. So some organizations you might find are one of our EP employers, and so they have that kind of connected to their name and will kind of anticipate that their employees have that designation as well, and will help kind of foster that designation to be acquired. So few different levels here. If you are interested kind of in that full career path and having that a bit more of a designation, would highly recommend checking out those options, and for sure starting kind of with that student program gives you a little bit more insight into what it's like, and also that great mentorship kind of early on in your career to build some connections. Next, I will chat about our training and development resources. So I kind of touched on that a little bit with that EPT student program, that there is access to additional training courses throughout that for free. So if you are looking around on our website, I highly recommend just kind of looking at our training resources and checking out some of our webinars. We do have a ton of free material that's on our training side of our website, although there are kind of ones that are more paid services for some of our longer courses. There are short things like we just did a webinar for project management and then project management risk. And so those are great ones just to kind of, they're an hour long, they're free. You can just kind of watch, see if it's something you're interested in, and then add it to your LinkedIn or to your resume. Project management is a big one we're seeing in the environmental sector that employers are looking for, and looking for youth to have a little bit more experience in that area. So building those key concepts. If it's a free course you can take on an hour, it's great to kind of add to your resume and have a little bit more of those skills behind your name for adding on and selling yourself in job interviews coming up. So would recommend looking at some of those free ones if you are just kind of wanting to see what's out there. Outside of that, we do also have those paid courses that can be a little bit longer in length. So we do have a full-length project management course that is, I believe, kind of in that 10-hour zone. So a little bit longer of a commitment, but definitely, again, what we hear from employers is one of the key things that they're looking for from youth coming into their roles is that project management and those soft skills as well. So tagging on to those soft skills, we also offer a professional communications course. And also we just had a conflict management course as well. So things like that that are just kind of good to add to your resume and have a little bit more experience behind. The last one I'll also recommend is our technical writing course. So this is really good to kind of get away from sometimes in classes we take a lot of time to write and hit that word count, and this kind of helps with a little bit more of the professional writing that comes into play once you're in a role and need to kind of write those concise reports and then have a little bit more accuracy there. That's a great course to take if you're looking to just kind of work on your writing skills and kind of what that would mean in a practical work-life setting. So those are the ones I'll recommend to you for right now, but of course you can check out a little bit more. We also offer webinars and kind of some live courses as well, but most of them are on demand and kind of at your own pace. So that's a nice way to kind of go around it. The last thing I'll get into here in terms of resources is our wage funding. So that's my team. So I do have a little bit more expertise on these side of things. So just some fun facts. We funded over 10,000 jobs for youth and distributed over 90 million to over 5,000 employers since 2002. So a lot of that's happened in the last year or so. And so we're definitely building up and being able to offer more of those wage funding opportunities to youth across Canada. So essentially, what is employment programs or wage funding? Those terms are kind of used interchangeably. So wage funding for us, we receive grants from the government to be able to fund environmental positions across Canada for youth just starting out in their career. So what that means for you guys is if you're going to an interview with an employer and you pre-qualify for one of our programs, and I'll touch on that a little bit more later on of how to pre-qualify, but you can say, hey, I have this pre-qualification for this wage funding program, and it'll cover up to, for example, 80% of my wages, up to $25,000. So that's really great for the organizations if they're maybe tight for cash or they're a startup or you're transitioning careers and it's a little bit of a gamble to take that chance on you, whatever it may be. It gives a little bit more incentive to that organization to be able to take you on and maybe train you a bit more if you don't have any experience in the industry yet, or if they just might not be able to take someone on without that additional funding, again, if they're a startup or a nonprofit, gives the opportunity to gain that experience and join that organization. And then the organization also gets the bonus of being able to bring on talent and be able to train, but also not have to take on a financial burden with that process as well. So we have a few different programs that target this. Each one kind of has its own eligibility criteria and different requirements from the organization and the intern as well. So right now, I will just kind of give some general background information that our current fiscal year ends at the end of March. And so we are wrapping up a lot of our wage funding programs at the moment, but come April, all of those wage funding programs reset and we get kind of a new pool of money to pull from, and then that goes for another year. So right now, you will see on our website a lot of our applications are closed just because we are wrapping up the last fiscal year, but keep your eye on the website for kind of that beginning of April. Everything will kind of come up again. So if you're seeing stuff and it looks like everything's closed, don't panic. In a few weeks, you'll be good to go again and be able to kind of direct employers to that website again. So the key ones I'll kind of share with you today is our Environmental Employability Pathways program, which is the second one there, as well as our Student Work Placement program. Our Youth and Natural Resources and our Science Horizons internship, those two at the bottom, are more for those full-time positions. So if you have already graduated from post-secondary, maybe this is your last year and you're going looking for a full-time position after this school year, those ones I would recommend because they go for about 6 months to 12 months of a workplace opportunity. So a little bit longer in length, whereas those first two are kind of designed for students who are still in school and just looking for kind of a summer placement or a shorter placement to kind of get more experience in on a part-time basis. So a little bit of a difference on those two. So I'll chat quickly about the Environmental Employability Pathways Program, which EEP for short, because that's a mouthful. So for this program, employers can receive up to $15,000 in wages. And this program is more so focused on those youth who have barriers to obtaining work experience, and it's for part-time or full-time positions. So some of our other employment programs we offer have to be a full-time basis. So this one's nice because you have a bit of flexibility, especially if it's during the school year and you're just wanting to do a few hours a week. This one would kind of be the one I would recommend for you. This position or this program is open for a variety of positions. So it can be science, technology, engineering, arts, math, business, or administrative positions. So some of our other programs are quite strict on the environmental tie or natural resources sector that they have to be directly correlated with for a job position. This program has a little bit more flexibility. So if you're looking for maybe a business position, but in an environmental sector, this might be kind of the program I would point you towards to be the one that would be the most successful for you. So in terms of being an intern and applying for these type of positions, on our website, you can currently go through as an intern and do the pre-approval process. What that's going to do is just ask you a few eligibility questions and then have kind of a secondary application process where you just have to answer a few questions about your employment history, if you have any post-secondary at that time or what the status is of it, and just kind of general information to gather. For most of our programs, the requirements are that you have to, well, for EEP specifically, you have to be 30 years of age or younger. So it does focus on youth, and that's what the government of Canada has described as a youth. You have to be under 30 years of age. You have to be a Canadian citizen, a permanent resident, or have refugee status, and legally entitled to work in Canada are kind of the main requirements you'll see on this particular program. There's no education requirement or anything like that for this program. So that's kind of the intern side of things on the eligibility criteria there. The second one that I'll focus on is our co-op programs as well. So in terms of eligibility for this program, it's a little bit different. There is no age requirement, just as long as you're still registered in a post-secondary institution, you would be eligible for this program. It still has the same eligibility criteria of having to be a Canadian citizen, permanent resident, or refugee status, and just that you have to be enrolled in post-secondary are the only main kind of eligibility points for this program. So just a little bit different with the age requirements between those two. For this student work placement program, so employers can receive up to 75% of wages covered. This one isn't as flexible with kind of the opportunities we'll accept, but it is more flexible than some of our full-time ones, if that makes any sense. So it can be in any of kind of the STEAM areas here, but also can be business positions. But we typically are looking for a little bit more of a stronger focus on that environmental sector in order to approve placements and job positions in this program specifically. For this program, the funding's for 6 to 16-week paid work terms, but you have to work a minimum of 180 hours in that work term. And so kind of flexible on how many weeks you want to make it, but it does have to be that minimum and that maximum and meet those 180 hours. So if you're a little bit concerned about if you'll meet those hours, again, I would recommend that EEP program instead. And we run like a typical school semester. So we open up for summer placements and then the fall placements and then the winter placements. So we have kind of 3 intakes throughout the year. Again, applications for the organization side of things aren't currently open, but you can still go onto the website and apply as an intern and get that pre-approval status. So one thing I wanted to highlight with that pre-approval status is once you have it, it doesn't really expire unless you've reach that age maximum with that EEP program or any of our other full-time programs. And so one thing you can do once you have that is including it on your cover letter and just saying, I've already been pre-approved for Eco-Canada co-op funding or whatever program it is. This program covers 75% of my wages up to, for example, this past year for co-op, it was $7,500. And so you put that information in there, kind of give them a little bit of an explanation of they would just need to apply as well. And then Eco-Canada would take over the process of covering my wages at that 75%. And so what we find this really shows for youth who are trying to get in an organization, especially if you're trying to work with an organization who's maybe that startup or that nonprofit that needs a little bit more of that push, is that you're showing initiative to kind of reach out and have that opportunity already taken by taking that initiative and saying, hey, I already qualify for this. All you have to do is apply. And then all of my wages, well, most of my wages will be covered. And that kind of gives you a better insight into being able to bring on new talent and have them take a chance on you a little bit more. So we always highly recommend once you have that pre-approval status to go ahead and add that to your cover letter or resume, and then have that conversation if you got an interview too. If they have a lot of questions and they're not really too sure how to go about the process, you can always send them our way and we can answer any questions they have. But ultimately, it's just they just have to apply and kind of answer a few questions and input information about the position that they're applying for. And then everything else is kind of taken care of on our side of things. So definitely highly recommend getting that pre-approval status and adding it onto that cover letter if you're starting to look for jobs in the next little bit here. The last thing I'm going to touch on before I'll open it up for questions for anything is our Eco-Canada job board. So our job board is for across Canada, and we use kind of a system to pull in all the environmental sector jobs across Canada into one place so you can kind of filter through and see what's on there. I believe right now we have over 600 jobs on that job board. So lots of opportunities to kind of take a look around and see what's available. We do kind of have, you can see these stickers here of if it's an internship position or a co-op position, or the little kind of leaf there is if they are an environmental professional organization as well, so one of our certification programs. So those tags kind of help you narrow down your search if you're looking for internship or co-op positions specifically. And we also have an AI matching system. So if you go in and upload your resume to that job board section, it will kind of automatically show you jobs that fit your resume and what might be a good match. And so it kind of takes that process out of looking through everything, but then it also gives you some good insights to see what's on my resume and what is this AI pulling. And does that mean if I'm getting jobs that I'm not interested in, but it's saying my resume is a good match for, is that maybe some insight that I need to maybe change some keywords on my resume so that I get the jobs that I'm actually interested in looking at. So you can also get some insights that way, but employers on their end can also see the resumes uploaded and have that matching system as well. So definitely check it out. It's kind of cool to see what you get matched with and see what's available out there in the environmental sector. So that is kind of all I have for you guys today. I know it's a lot of information. We offer a lot of different resources, and there's certainly more on our website once you get going. But I will kind of leave that there with you guys. I also have my email on here as well if you're not comfortable asking any questions over this call, or if you kind of have specific ones that come up later that you prefer to email through, feel free to email me and I can help answer any of those questions. Otherwise, if there are any questions at the moment, I'd be happy to answer.
Thank you so much, Emma. That was super helpful. Very informative. I think when I discovered Eco-Canada, the website a few years back, I was a little bit overwhelmed at first with the amount of information and resources. It can take a while to get used to where to click and where to go and what's there. Wealth of information, up to date. I mean, I love that your website, you know, it provides all of those statistics and that information that students are really looking for about the job market. And yeah, so I'm really excited to share this with students on an ongoing basis. I'm happy to have you here. We do have a few questions in the chat that I've kind of been waiting until the end. So if you don't mind, if hopefully nobody else minds, I'll start with some of the student questions that were here.
Sure.
When you were talking about EPT student, and Adam, you can correct me if I'm wrong, but Adam had typed, do you see a lot of environmental engineers participating in this program? So EPT student or the EP designation afterwards.
Yeah, so the certification program is not my direct department, so I don't have too much kind of insight on the applications that are coming through on that side of things. But I do know that kind of that engineer profession in the environmental sector is one we see most commonly. So I can't speak too much to kind of how much that is out of all of the ones that are coming through, just because I'm not seeing those applications on a day-to-day basis. But I do know that that's kind of a large sector that we are seeing coming through.
Thank you. And there was a question about, do you offer any programs as far as wage funding goes that support recently graduated international students, or do you know of any?
Yeah, so unfortunately not at the moment, but that is something that we provide kind of regular feedback to the government on. So all of our employment programs come through the Government of Canada, definitely because we don't have that international student support in our current wage funding programs. That is a question we get asked a lot, and will we see it kind of a thing? And we give that feedback very regularly, but unfortunately at the moment we don't have any programs that do support that.
Thank you, Emma. I see a few people typing. While those are coming through, I had a question I had written down regarding just those, to give students who are listening an idea, when you're talking about employers identifying that soft skills are lacking, are there any particular ones that you find are kind of coming up frequently that students should really be focusing on developing?
Yeah, so I think most of them are just coming through kind of in that general soft skills aspect of things. But so when we do our wage funding placements, we do kind of get that regular report feedback from both our organizations and also the interns that work there, as well as kind of check-in points. And the most common one comes around just like general communication in the workplace. And kind of things like how to write emails correctly and how to have those kind of conversations on a day-to-day basis with your manager, and how to have those supportive conversations with clients as well. And so the main ones are kind of just around that communication piece and understanding kind of how to go about that once you get into a professional workplace setting. One of the most recent ones that we kind of highlighted, I briefly mentioned, but I know it was a lot of information, was our productive conflict management course that we just launched. And so one of the things we saw coming up quite often in reports is just around how to have that healthy conflict in a workplace environment, and how to handle it as well, and have those communication styles and know how to communicate with a boss versus kind of someone who's on the same level, and how to have that conflict without it kind of going south in the end. So those are kind of the key ones we see, is just general communication, and how to handle that in a workplace setting.
Great, thank you. And it's so wonderful that there's resources available to support with that, directed to this environmental kind of focused sector as well. We have a few questions coming in now. Would the wage funding programs for graduated students be eligible for government positions or government adjacent positions like Crown corporations, FSWEP, or what is it primarily for private companies or nonprofits?
Yeah, great question. And so we do have the wage funding programs available for government positions. I think the only ones that aren't eligible if it's like a federal position. But a lot of we see municipalities and things like that, and those kind of positions are definitely something we are able to fund through our wage funding programs. So not too many rules on those things. But we do kind of primarily focus, I will say, on those nonprofits and those startups that kind of need that funding a little bit more. But there is kind of nothing that would stop us from being able to fund those other positions as well.
Great, thank you. We have another question from Sarah. Are any of the post-grad programs, such as the EPT designation, or the youth and natural resources, are any of these offered remotely, or are there any like remote, I guess, jobs available is probably part of that question too, such as research positions that you know of?
For sure, yeah. So I'll kind of tackle that in two questions. So for our designation programs, I believe those are all online or remote. And there is kind of opportunities for networking events across Canada kind of throughout the year, but primarily they are all kind of done remotely. And that would also be if you have a mentor, would kind of be distinguishing that with them and what they're comfortable with, but definitely wouldn't stop you from being able to go through that designation process. For the youth and natural resources, for remote positions, so for any of our wage funding opportunities, there is no requirement that it has to be in person since we know a lot of things have changed. We do see a lot of research positions or kind of more of those desk roles that have been remote and been funded through us. So definitely having a remote position is available and would still be funded through our programs.
Thank you. Just checking. Somebody's typing. I had a question. The one program you had mentioned talked about barriers to employment, primarily for individuals with barriers to employment. Can you just address what that means for the students? I know that I've had some students that have asked me, I want an environmental job, but I cannot or do not have my driver's license, for example. So maybe perhaps that could fit there. I'm not sure on your take on that and what other barriers. Can you just help everyone understand what that means, please?
For sure. Yeah, great question. So for our EEP program specifically, that one was it's one of our newest programs. So we just launched it in January, and it does have that focus of primarily helping those who face barriers, youth who face barriers for employment. And so we do kind of offer it to everyone, but internally and through the kind of the government requirements, we do kind of have certain things we're looking for in prioritizing funding when it comes to the interns we're supporting and then the youth we're supporting in the field. And so the different kind of criteria that the government has set forward for that program and the ones that they're kind of prioritizing the funding for is young women, youth with a visible minority or youth with a disability, or youth who have kind of there's a long term for it, but I'm blanking on it now. Who either the English is the second language, or if they are in Quebec, French is a second language. So those are kind of the main criteria we have to go with against what the government has provided for us for that prioritization and funding. In regards to something like you mentioned with not having a driver's license or having access to a car or being in a remote or rural area, those aren't one of the eligibility points for that EEP program, but I will mention, so we do have our Science Horizons internship program that I didn't go into too much detail on because it is one of our full-time programs, and you do have to be graduated from post-secondary to be eligible for it. But with that program, it's 80% of wages covered up to $25,000. But then on top of that, they do have what they call wraparound services available in that program. And so some of those wraparound services kind of highlight some of those struggles. And so if you are in a remote or rural area and you have a lot of traveling or have to move somewhere that's remote or rural, there is up to kind of $4,000 available in extra funds to kind of target those barriers that youth might be facing, or if it's things like internet connection in a rural area or needing childcare support. There's a little bit more of services and support available in that program. But again, you do have to be graduated from post-secondary for that program, and it's kind of more for those full-time and longer placements we're looking for. But just some insight that not for EEP, they don't offer that, unfortunately, but for SHI, if those kind of supports are needed, that program is focused on kind of helping those a little bit more.
Thank you. I'm just wondering if anybody else has any questions. I don't want to take over with my questions. This is here for the students. So I see somebody typing, so I'm just going to give it a minute. And if I don't get anything typed, then I might ask another question before we end off. Oh, Emma, we're just wondering if you could provide your email again. Can you type it in the chat for us, please?
For sure. Yeah, and if there's anything, I know it's kind of a lot of information that we offer, and once you get on our website, there can be a lot to kind of look through. And so, if there are any questions that pop up later on, feel free to email me, and I can help out as best I can because we always have a lot of resources. It's just knowing how to access them and utilize them to really help launch your career.
Thank you. I'm just wondering, as one of the final notes, when you talk about some of these in-demand careers that are coming up, and a lot of them are those mid to senior roles and due to retirements, what is your best advice for students to set themselves up for success and being able to grasp at some of these roles? For a lot of students I work with, it's kind of like, okay, but I'm going to be more looking at entry level right now, so that doesn't necessarily apply to me right now. But what's your advice on what they should be doing to set themselves up in a position where those roles will be realistic for them and they won't shy away from those roles?
Yeah, so it gets kind of in a tricky spot because, right, we're talking about going into kind of the start of your career, but then we're highlighting that there's all of this growth once you're in your mid to senior level of a career. And so I think the important thing to note with that is that that's kind of the projection for the next 5+ years. And obviously further down than that, that's also going to be the concern. And so kind of keeping in mind that maybe that in certain positions and depending on what role you end up, you might kind of get accelerated in your career to kind of fill those gaps and help fill those roles. Maybe not in the first few years of your career, but maybe 5 years down the line, you might be moved in a little bit quicker depending on the role. And so I think just highlighting a lot of kind of what we talked about today with those EPT designations and those different trainings we have. Again, I'll stress it that the project management is one we see all the time, specifically for those kind of mid-level roles as well. And so knowing that you don't have to be that expert right away, obviously it's going to take time to fill those mid to senior level roles, but knowing kind of maybe 5 years down the line, that might come a little bit faster just because there is going to be a gap in that area. So just really utilizing those resources that are available to you and learning as much as you can. But ultimately, it's kind of just the gap in that's coming up in the environmental sector, and if those opportunities are available and how fast they come. Again, will kind of depend on what role you're in as well.
Thank you. And I can personally kind of attest to what you're saying. My husband is in the environmental sector. He's kind of mid-level career right now and currently studying for his project management credentials as well to help him move up down the road. So I have firsthand experience that what you're saying is definitely true and trustworthy. Yeah, so thank you. I'm just wondering, does anybody else have any more questions before we finish off today? I don't see anybody typing, but last chance to ask any questions you have. You all have Emma's email address. I'm happy to type mine. I think you all probably have my email as well, but in case anyone has questions for me about the session or needing the reporting after the session or anything like that, I will put mine in the chat too. Emma, I'm just wondering one thing regarding the EPT student. It is an intensive, I think it was described. So what does that look like for students who are involved as far as time commitment goes on a daily basis or weekly basis? What can they be roughly expecting?
Yeah, so it just kind of is being relaunched for next year a little bit with the curriculum. So I don't have kind of exact kind of numbers on that end of things. But it's not a huge time commitment and it's kind of self-paced. So a lot of the resources you have are kind of look at your own time and kind of see when you want to get them done over that 8-month period. And so I would say maximum it would be like 1 or 2 hours a week kind of a thing. Probably more of the commitment side would be meeting up with a mentor regularly, and that also depends on how often you want to do that. Maybe it's once a month, maybe it's every week, depending on your preference. And so it's kind of what you make it. There is no like specific requirement for hours, but it's just that the resources are there for you, and those networking events and those mentorship events are there for you. It's just whether or not you take advantage of them in the time you have with that program. But definitely, yeah, it's kind of a little bit more flexible. It isn't anything where it would be too much to add on to the plate for the school year.
Great, thank you. That sounds very reasonable. I know everybody's always worried about how we're going to fit in one more thing into our busy schedule, so I appreciate that.
Yeah, for sure.
It doesn't look like there's any more questions coming in, so I guess everybody had their pressing questions answered, so thank you so much, Emma. For everybody that is here today, again, I've provided the links, I think, to most of the things that Emma was speaking about as some of the highlights from what Eco Canada offers. And if you're looking for support with job search or targeting resumes or cover letters, I've also provided the link to how to book appointments in our department. So we're happy to help you with that as well. And thank you, Emma, for being here and providing your email address. And I hope that everybody found this helpful and useful. And if you have any other questions, feel free to email me as well. And I guess that's it. We have a few people writing, but they're writing thank you. So thank you again. And I wish everybody a great afternoon. I'm going to stop recording now. Thank you so much, Emma. It was lovely to officially meet you today as well.
Of course, no worries.